Hi everyone, today I'm gonna show you guys a build where you can permanent stun any bosses using Snap Freeze and Teleport. I'm gonna showcase that on a 2270 corruption fight with Orobyss. Let's go. So as you can see, you would want to press the teleport button when Snap Freeze is almost off cooldown, and almost instantly after you press the teleport, you want to press your Snap Freeze. It might get tricky because you're going to be teleported to random location because of the long walk, but after some time you get used to it. There it is. Let's start with the skills section. Obviously, we will need Snap Freeze. We don't really need Teleport because all Teleport gives us is the 5% cooldown recovery speed for Snap Freeze. We can get more than that in items. And it does give you the 20% cooldown recovery speed, which is really important if you were to miss a Snap Freeze. You can keep pressing Teleport to stun the boss. Let's dive into Snap Freeze. So we want to take 4 points into Snow Flurry to get the 24% cooldown recovery speed. We don't really need it for the mana efficiency. And we would take 2 points into Focus Frost because we need to spec into Freezing Mist, and all these 5 points in Wandering Fog enables us to spec into that. We would spec all 5 points into Cryomancy because we need that increased freeze duration. We will take 2 points into Adapt so we can spec into Flash Freeze. It does reduce the freeze duration, but it reduces the cooldown. But the cooldown recovery speed is far more important because we can press Snap Freeze and Teleport, and we can spam Snap Freeze and Teleport. So the 2 points in Frostbite and Frozen Ground is kind of free for all. You can spec into anything. You can spec into Lusting Cold, and spec into Wandering Fog to increase the range, but it's kind of up to you. But you don't really need Shiver Armor because the Snap Freeze wouldn't really be on cooldown for like less than a second, and also the boss wouldn't be able to hit you, so the armor and cold resistance is kind of out of the equation. So I'm doing a Lightning Frost Claw build. So you could theoretically do this with a Sorcerer build or Spellblade, but if you want to kind of mimic my build, and go over the other specialization. So for runic invocation, because we are doing lightning frost claw, we would want this buff duration. We want all 4 points so that we can get a 12 seconds of spell damage buff and cast speed buff. So because we have unstable core, we have a lot more points to spend, and that's why I spec into this elemental stuff here. So I spec 2 points into this runic invocation, dealing more damage. It's not really too important. All of this devastating stuff for Cosmic Mind is only for us to spec into elemental stuff here, so that when we were to cast runic invocation, we'll cast the respective elemental Noras. So I believe it only casts 2 elemental Noras because we only have cold and lightning. But there's still 2, and because we are going to spec into runic energy, copy scrolls, and arcane battery, we are going to cast 4 elemental Noras, and we're going to repeat our Covenant Arc. And the reason why we are doing Covenant Arc is because we get a buff as well as we get Frenzy, which is really important when we fight bosses. And the reason why we get Covenant Arc is also because when we are mapping, we will want to switch this to Flame Rush so that we get Roving Frostguard, which gives us 30% less damage taken, and a burst of ward, and that's really important when mapping, but we don't really need a Flame Rush when we are fighting the boss. And we also do not need teleport when we're fighting mobs. We need survivability. So that's the switch from mapping and bossing. Back to runic invocation. So I forgot to mention this first. We will take 2 points into Etuin Approach and 1 point into this Rune Slinger. We don't really need this. These are just additional points. And I do take 1 point into Elemental Law, which is really not important for the Frost Guard, but because because my build focuses on a lot of intelligence, this elemental penetration is pretty good when we are using Covenant Arc. So back to runic invocation, we take a Altar of Arcana and Immutable Order, so that when we cast any spells, it takes it takes the order of the 3 spells in our skill bar, and because Snap Freeze is cold and Flame Ward is cold and Frost Claw is lightning, we get a ice cold lightning combination. And when we switch to Flame Rush, it's actually a cold fire cold because it would be Snap Freeze, Flame Rush, and Flame Ward. So that's the reasoning why the skills are arranged in such a way. We go to Flame Ward next. So when mapping, it's really important to have 2 charges so that the cooldown recovery does suffer because we are taking 2 points into Feel the Flames, but it's really important to have 2 charges so that we know for certain that we have 2 chances. And so we spec 2 points into Stalwart Defense, 1 point into Desperate Defense, so we can spec 2 points into Feel the Flames, into Dwell Aegis. So I did take 1 point into Astonishes because when mapping, it's very likely that you get stunned, and having this sort of another sort of protection is really important. In my case, it really helps a lot. We'll take 5 points into Barrier so that when we activate Flame Ward, we get more damage mitigation. And we also take Prismatic Buffer, so we take more points in damage mitigation. So we take 3 points in dilation. The duration is really important. We take Fire Aura so we can spec it into a cool spell. So we also take 2 points into Frost Guard so that we get more armor when we are casting Flame Ward. So into Elemental Nova. So because I'm doing a Spark Charge Runemaster, I take 1 point in Lightning Nova and 5 points into Spark Charges so that every time when we cast Elemental Nova indirectly with Frost Claw, is a 100% chance of getting a Spark Charge. And we take Elemental Expanse so that we can have an increased area of effect for Elemental Nova. We're going to spec into Fire Nova so we can spec into Infinite Nova. So we can increase the area by 250%. The cooldown really does not matter because we are casting Elemental Nova from Frost Claw. So we also take 1 point into Ash Frenzy so we can take 5 points into Melting Nova. The reason for this is just for the armor shred chance. I mean, when I get a better item that has an armor shred chance, then I would respec this into more area of effect. We also enable Ice Nova so we can spec 2 points into Elemental Tranquility into Cryomantic Fragility. So we want to reduce the mana cost so that the mana cost is 0. So we take 3 points into this. We reduce the mana cost by 9. I believe the mana cost is -1 right now, so it's actually 0, but if you take 1 point off, it would cost 1 mana. So next we'll talk about Frost Claw. So we want to take 3 points into Gift of Winter, and this is the most important because you will want to reduce the mana cost and also have the chance to gain 12 mana on cast. It's the most important skill to make a Frost Claw self-sustainable. We take 2 points into Arthur's Spectre, so we can spec into Frost Beyond Time and into Celestial Conflux. So this is the main skill to trigger the Elemental Nova. So we take 1 point into Spark Artillery to change Frost Claw into Lightning. We take 4 points into Spark of Celerity to increase the mana efficiency. So to the left, we take 1 point in Rending Cascade, so we can take Frozen Rain. So we do reduce the mana cost by 3. We reduce the projectile speed, and also it increases damage to frozen enemies, which synchronizes well with our Snap Freeze. And we take 1 point here so that we can spec into Coaster, and we can spec into On Through the Snow, Forever Onward, A Crack in the Eye, and Frozen Malice, so we can have more casts from Frostclaw to trigger more Elemental Nova. We take 1 point into Fan of the Frozen so we can spec into Bright Frost, and so we can spec into Hand of Moritas for the extra projectiles, as well as Volley of Glass so we can have the projectiles hit the same target. And that's it for the skills section. Alright, next we're going to talk about the items. So the MVP of the build is Wrong Warp, which allows you to stun the enemy at the destination for 1 second when you cast Teleport. I mean, the destination is kind of random, but after some time you get used to it, and I believe the AoE is pretty huge because I have no problem with stunning the boss. You just have to get pretty close to the boss. It also gives us 59 spell damage, increased spell damage per movement speed. 3% is pretty huge when we have scaling to movement speed. We also get 29% chance to gain haste. And when we cast Chrono Warp, when we cast Teleport, we gain Chrono Warp, which also gives us 35% increased cast speed and movement speed, and that also scales with the spell damage, and it also scales with our spark charge from Fragment of the Enigma. I got a 2 LP, I spec cast speed, T7 cast speed into it, and T5 critical strike multiplier. The T7 cast speed is really crucial because you can cast Frost Claw faster, which in turn give you more spark charges on the target. And for Fragment of the Enigma, I get a T7 critical strike multiplier and T5 spell damage and a T5 fire resistance. I don't really need the fire resistance, but I got unlucky there, but at least I got the critical strike multiplier and spell damage. So spell damage or lightning damage works the same because spark charge is skills with both lightning and spell. But spell damage is better because it would give us a little bit more damage for our Elemental Nova. Next we'd go with Unstable Core. I got a 2 LP and I was lucky enough to get a 24 Intelligence as well as the spell crit into the Unstable Core. And the roll was pretty good because I got a 94 mana one and one that has a 131% increased elemental damage. It's pretty good. For the Juror's Ring, I got one 2 LP that has 16 intelligence and 66 health. Ideally, I would want to spec intelligence and spell damage, but I got health, which is not too bad because it helps with the Twisted Heart. The second Juror's Ring I got has the same 16 intelligence, but it is 1 LP. So I'll talk about the other gears before I talk about the belt, boots, and amulet. So for the gloves, I got the Malin's Hubris because it does give us a 6 intelligence as well as the armor. We don't really need the endurance, but it does give us vitality too. I mean, it doesn't. I mean, it helps a little with survivability, not too much, but most important is the intelligence. I got a 3 LP one. This sell for pretty cheap. This is why also another reason why I get this. So I get T7 intelligence and T5 cast speed. I do kind of need poison resistance, so it was a pretty good spec. I mean, it was a pretty good slam. Twisted Heart, I got a pretty good roll on this. 1 legendary potential, but also I got a +4 to Frost Claw. Actually, this build should work with a +3 to Frost Claw as well. So for the amulet, this is also one of the most important piece of gear that you would want to have. So it gives a 72% increased freeze duration with Snap Freeze. I mean, the range is 30 to 75. Ideally, you would want to get something closer to 75. I would say anything from 70 to 75% would work. You don't really need anything else from here. The critical strike chance, if you're lucky, you can get 35%, but it's not too important. The most important is the freeze duration. The belt, I got a exalted belt instead of a legendary belt because I need the 32% increased cooldown recovery speed. So I did Rune of Refinement until I get a 32% increased cooldown recovery speed, and the rest of it is not as important. I could theoretically switch this and get a better one because I don't really need fire resistance, but it's not too important because this is a belt just for bossing, so the lightning damage and the cooldown recovery speed is what matters most. And for this Stymied Fate, I use this because I want the 21% increased cooldown recovery speed for teleport, and I get a 1 LP. I mean, I can get a 2 LP with lightning damage or intelligence, but for now I just have one that has a cooldown recovery speed 32%, the max that you can get with T7 as well. So you could theoretically get another boost with T7 You don't really need this, but my other gear do not have that, so that's why I just use this for it. And the 21% increased cooldown recovery speed for teleport is just important because if you were to miss, you can press the teleport button pretty fast. I mean, it's actually just 1.9 seconds. I don't know why it's showing 1.9 in 2 seconds. I think it's like 1.95 or something like that. And for the idols, I get the 13% mana efficiency with Frostcore. That's really important for a Frostcore build. And I got the max that I can get for the lightning damage. I did spend quite a lot on this because it was the max that you can get for the lightning damage. And over here I get another 13% mana efficiency with Frostcore and a 37% increased lightning damage. And you will get one with a critical strike chance and a lightning damage. This was alright. It was not the best, but it works. So two of the similar one, and I get two of the similar 20% increased critical strike chance and lightning damage, and then a ward retention and lightning damage. So these are all just for damages. These are all just for damage because you would want more damage versus the boss. And so when I press teleport and when I'm using the skills, my spell damage would go to 533% and lightning damage would go to 725%. This is actually a pretty good damage. Although it would have been more if I could equip my regular gear, but all that matters is the cooldown recovery speed when we are fighting Orobyss or any bosses, because we want to stunlock the boss. When the boss is stunned, we don't really have to avoid it or avoid any projectiles or anything, so it does give us more damage in turn. This build is not as flashy as other builds, but it guarantees that you can beat Orobyss with ease. So my resistance are not fully maxed out. It's pretty low for cold and physical and void, but it doesn't really matter when you're fighting the boss. And when we're switching to mapping, we want to switch to Blood of the Exile, and we want something that has 12 intelligence if possible, and I got a 2 LP one and I spec 16 intelligence and movement speed. As you can remember, the movement speed, the skill with our round warp, and that gives us more damage when mapping. The second switch would be the belt, which gives us ward retention and mana spend gain as ward. The mana spend gain as ward is really good because we would be spending a lot of mana when we are mapping. And I spec a lightning damage. I got pretty lucky there. Got a 118%, almost top of the range. For the amulet, I use devotion, and the reason why I use this is for the lightning damage and lightning penetration. It gives us a very high lightning penetration as well as a pretty good lightning damage. I spec critical strike multiplier and spell damage into it. As for blessings, the blessings that matter are Grant Emptiness of Ash, the 40% critical strike multiplier, and we need the 42% chance to shred lightning resistance. The 20% to a resistance is really important when mapping. So for the Age of Winter, I didn't get the best blessing, but I should probably go back and fix this. Physical resistance is probably a lot better, and anything else, I mean increased armor, because 25 to 55% increased armor would probably be the best, because it does scale with our armor. For the Spirits of Fire, I don't really need the fire resistance strat. I was doing another build, which is why I have both of this, but because I'm doing lightning, frostcore, both of these do not matter. For this, I would want to change to the armor blessing if I can. And yep. Alright, next we go to passives. I actually did make some adjustment after the fight, so I could have dealt more damage to Orobyss. So the changes was that I was having 8 points in Decree of the Burning Wind, and I did not really use the Celestial Doom because I have the 8% increased damage, and doubled of that would be 16%. But since I'm not using the Fire Rune when bossing, this doesn't really matter. I didn't really change this because I did not realize that I have spec into this. So let's start with Mage. We put 8 points into Arcanist and 2 points into Elementalist. 8 points into Arcanist simply for the intelligence, 2 points for Elementalist so that we can spec into Mage Flurry. We need 10 points to go into Mage Flurry. The increased cast speed is important, but what is more important here is also the cooldown recovery speed for Teleport and Snap Freeze. The 9% is pretty good. We put 9 points into Knowledge of Destruction so that we get 63% critical strike chance and 27% critical strike multiplier. This is mainly for more damage. On the sorcery tree, we put 5 points in Arcane Momentum, so we get 5% cast speed, and with 5 stacks we get a 25%, and since our cast speed is really high, we will get to max stacks really easily. We also get increased spell damage with Essence of Celerity, 6 points into this, so we also get the movement speed buff. So we put 8 points in Calculated Destruction, and this is really good for the spell critical strike chance since we will be scaling from intelligence. Put 1 point in Serenomancer so that we can spec into Riftbolt. This gives us a little more lightning damage, but also it gives us a Riftbolt which gives us a 15% lightning penetration. That's really high. And also we get a 1.5% lightning damage leash, which is really important because we'll be using Twisted Heart, which converts our health into ward, and we'll be gaining the health back from Riftbolt. In the Runemaster tree, we put 6 points into Unseal Mana for the increased cast speed, and we don't really need it for the mana. We don't use the trees. We don't need to use the bonus as well, but we put this simply for the cast speed. We put 8 points into Arcane Focus for the intelligence, but also it gives us significant amount of ward when we cast a spell with our high cast speed is really high. This would give us really good ward. We put 6 points into Mental Catalysis, which gives us a lot of intelligence, 6 points in intelligence, and also it reduces bonus damage taken from crits. We put 6 points into Runeward Cataclysm, which gives us a lot of critical strike chance, and with 5 points bonus we also get more damage versus low health mobs and Orobyss and boss. We put 1 point into Neverlate, so this is not too important because it only increases our spell damage on Frostclaw and crit chance. It's mainly for the Rune of Dilation, so that after we cast Teleport when we are bossing or Flame Rush when we are mapping, it gives us increased cast speed and move speed for 4 seconds. I believe 4 seconds is the sweet spot where we'll be using Flame Rush every 4 seconds or Teleport. We put 6 points into Inscribe Instruments because we are using a wand and it gives us a lot of critical strike multiplier. This is simply for more damage. We put 10 points in Ancient Inscription for the intelligence, and also because it gives us a lot of cooldown recovery speed because we are scaling with intelligence. We put 5 points into Brand of Deception so that we get the Brand of Deception. Once we get Brand of Deception, it scales with our Celestial Dome because if we put 7 points into Celestial Dome and we do 7% more spell damage to branded bosses. Also, it allows us to gain ward versus branded bosses, however it's not really important because the bosses will be permanently stunned. But like I say, I was using this and I didn't realize it, so I could have dealt more damage with Brand of Deception and Celestial Doom. And I put 1 point, and you need to put 1 point in Runeward Hurricane because it's a pretty good buff. We get a +10 lightning damage. We don't really need the freeze rate multiplier, and we only put 1 point on this because of a cast speed will be really high that it doesn't really matter. We would all with the 20% would be triggered in like a second or two. We put 4 points into Jagged Wheel. We need we'll gain a lot of ward because we'll be creating a lot. But the main thing was from the main bonus for this is also the crit multiplier. We get 20% more critical strike multiplier versus bosses. We'll always have more than 20. We'll always have more than 2000 ward, and that would give us 20% more critical strike multiplier. So I realized I made a mistake earlier when talking about Elemental Nervous. So if you take Chromatic Fragility off by 1 point, Elemental Nervous is going to cost 2 mana instead of 1. And when you proc a lot of Elemental Nervous from crossbow, I don't think that's sustainable. But you're welcome to try. But all in all, for this build to work, Snap Freeze is your focus. You want Snap Freeze to have a very low cooldown and a very long duration. I mean, equip the items again. So, alright, it's 5.7 seconds. So, let's go back to Snap Freeze skill tree. So, it has a base duration of 2 seconds. With Cryomancy, we get a plus 60% duration, and with Freezing Mist, we get a plus 20%, so that's plus 80%. And the Flash Freeze gives us a minus 16% penalty, but it doesn't really matter because we would have a 72% freeze duration increase with this amulet on Snap Freeze. So with 60 plus 20, 80 minus 16, that's 64. 64 plus 72, that's 136. So that's 236%, 2.36 multiplied by 2 seconds. That is 4.72 seconds. So we have a cooldown of 5.7 seconds on our Snap Freeze with 20% remaining cooldown recover when we freeze an enemy at the start of Snap Freeze. So that is 80% of 5.7 seconds, so that is about 4.56 seconds. So the cooldown of Snap Freeze is actually shorter than the duration of Snap Freeze, so it's 4.5 seconds cooldown on a 4.72 seconds duration of Snap Freeze. So in theory, you could just keep pressing Snap Freeze on the boss and you should be fine. I mean, that's the 0.16 seconds of reaction time. However, you can just press teleport. That gives you a much better guarantee that you're gonna keep stun locking the boss. You could theoretically work on just having Snap Freeze and just overlap the Snap Freeze. However, you have to be really precise on that. And if that's what you want to do, you can do that as well. And that's all for today. Hopefully you learned something from this video, and hopefully I can learn something from you guys as well. Thank you guys.